What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we have some brand spankin' new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that has just gone live and unveiled a bunch of new official Destiny 2 information. And so, let's get started. Now, the biggest thing undoubtedly today was the unveiling of the brand new event Arc Week. This is something that we really knew absolutely nothing about. It randomly appeared in one of the roadmaps, just said Arc Week, and everyone was like, what's Arc Week? And end of story pretty much until today, where Bungie actually unveiled what's going on for this event. So again, it's launching this upcoming reset on April 9th, and here's what it's bringing. Mainly, it's going to have all the activities that normally come with a burn. They are going to have that Arc Singe burn, and there's also going to be what's referred to as Arc bounties, very interestingly. So perhaps getting kills with an Arc subclass or Arc weapons and so on will provide you with certain rewards. There's also going to be mayhem in the Crucible to use your Arc subclasses way more often, and the Thunderlord exotic machine gun quest is returning for this week. But there are some more things happening as well, and mainly, when you're enjoying this increase to arc damage, why not enjoy that even further with blanket buffs to pretty much every arc subclass in Destiny 2? That's right, starting on April 9th, there's also going to be a brand new patch hitting the game where all your arc subclasses have gotten pretty substantially buffed. Let's go over the changes. First off, we have the Striker Code of the Juggernaut, the bottom path. The note here is that this path is all about punching enemies to get better at shooting them, and shooting enemies to get better at punching them. We wanted to further incentivize engaging this loop and make doing so more visible and flashy. Shooting an enemy should make you feel like you are primed to strike with melee. Punching an enemy and releasing your rage will make you feel like a more focused shot. So, firstly, with Frontal Assault, now increases all weapon damage for the duration of the buff. 25% increased damage against combatants, and 20% increased damage against players. Woo! Then we've got the duration increased from 10 seconds previously to now 16 seconds, and also the buff timer is now displayed on the HUD. Moving on from there, for Knockout, melee damage bonus increased from 25% to 60%. More than doubling, almost tripling that damage output. Also, now triggers once you have dealt 60% damage to a target. Any damage done after 60% will refresh the timer, and it still also triggers off a shield pop. Additionally, no longer consumed after one melee attack, and duration increased from 3 to 5 seconds. Those are some pretty sizable buffs right there, but that's just for the Titan. Moving on from there, we have the Arcstrider Way of the Warrior, which is the top path. The note here is that this path thrives on striking with precision and timing and is heavily melee focused. To enhance this loop, we are giving it a bit more nuance with a higher potential payout. We want to allow for more room to execute and engage with both the path to success and the benefits once you do succeed. So firstly, for Combination Blow, bonus melee damage can now be stacked 3 times, requires a melee ability kill for each stack. And in addition to that, buff increases melee damage by 60% per stack in PvE and by 22.7% per stack in PvP. For comparison, this ability used to be 1 stack and increased melee damage by 50%. So in PvE, like, that's an enormous buff. So not only just getting 1 stack, 1 melee kill is going to be better than before, but then you can combine that and get 3 stacks for a total of 180% increased damage. So that seems really good. And lastly, we're not done. Kills with this ability now heal 40 health in addition to starting health regen. And in addition to that, Deadly Reach increased buff duration from 6 to 8 seconds, and the buff is no longer consumed by a melee hit. So that consumed part, that's very important, and we've mentioned it before, and we're going to mention it again. Essentially, you would have this crazy buff, you would hit an enemy, and you'd do all your damage in that one melee strike, and then it would go away. Not consuming this buff means that you can hit and hit and hit and hit again, and all of those hits are going to be affected by the buff. That's a big change. But we're actually not done with Arcstrider. Next we have the Way of the Wind, which is the bottom path. The note here is this path is about quick movement and thriving under pressure. We want to increase your ability to survive at low health and enhance your elusiveness so that you can be more confident while in danger. This way, you don't just get a bonus when you're injured, you have more control over what state you are in. And you can make more risk-reward choices. So firstly, Disorienting Blow. Increase the disorient distance by 50%. Then we have increased duration of disorient on players from 1.5 to 2 seconds. Next up, for Focus Breathing, increased dodge recharge bonus while sprinting by 100%, so literally double of what it was before. Then we have Combat Meditation, increased bonus grenade and melee regeneration while bloodied by 25%. And then, lastly, we have Lightning Reflexes. So increased damage resistance while dodging from 25% up to 40% now in PvP, and increase the damage resistance in PvE from 63% up to 70%. Alright, now moving on from there, we have the Warlock with the Stormcaller. And for the Stormtrance Super, this is going to affect both the top and bottom path. Damage scales up to 150% over 5 seconds of continuous use of the attack, and updated the FX and audio to support this functionality. So Stormcaller is a lot better now, but we have some more focus buffs, firstly with the attunement of Conduction, the top path. The note here is that this path focuses predominantly on Chain Lightning, but we also want to better sell the fantasy of being a god of erratic and dangerous energy. We want you to be delighted and surprised by the chaos you cause. On top of that, we should make the choice of using your abilities something to better strategize around and reward you for doing so. So firstly, for Chain Lightning Melee, can now chain up to 5 times up from 1, and each individual target can be hit twice. Chain damage decreased from 50 to 31 damage per chain hit. So obviously you had to have a little bit of a decrease in damage there, but oh my goodness, so you can one melee someone and it chains to 5 guys now. That seems like a pretty big difference there. And in terms of PvE ad clearing functionality, this could be one of the best melees out there for that purpose. Moving on from there, however, we do have Arc Web. Can now chain to many more targets and back and forth between targets. So you're basically going to be able to do double the damage you were previously, because instead of chaining from one guy to the next, it can now go from one guy to the next, back to that original one guy, and then maybe back to the next again. That seems insane. And also the amount of chaining varies based on use, and I will leave it to you to discover. Oh my goodness. Also, increase chain range from 10 meters to 12 meters. Chaining arc damage now reduces the cooldown of your grenade, works with arc web chains, and chains from Chain Lightning Melee earn 3% energy per instance of chain damage in PvE and earn 10% energy in PvP. Now, if those changes are as insane in-game as they are seemingly when you read them, then potentially Stormcaller could be a really good option to use in something like Reckoning. A Stormcaller with the Crown of Tempest exotic helmet could just chain the crap out of so many ads, and just the ad clearing potential could be so great that you may want to consider using it over what is traditionally used, which is a Nova Bomb Warlock. Like, that's a definite possibility here. But we're not done. Next up, we have the attunement of the elements for the Stormcaller, the bottom path. And the note here is, currently, this path focuses on creating drone buddies for allies and staying close to them to dish out more rifts and the buddies therein. Generally, Arc Drone is short-lived and you need to stay close to your rift to keep it around. Now, you will be able to take your pal further, and if you stick with friends, we'll be able to have it around much more often, making this path more potent as support. So, for Electrostatic Surge, increased bonus regeneration rate of Rift by 600% per nearby friendly Guardian. What? 600% per nearby friendly guardian. So if you got 2, that's 1,200% more recharge rate for your Rift. Well, if you're standing by 2 allies. That seems absurd. Now it says, this sounds insane, and it's a big boost you will definitely feel, but it was previously very low. Extends Rift duration from 15 to 20 seconds, and added a UI notification when the buff is active. Like, that's truly a remarkable buff. Then for Arc Soul, extended duration by 50%. So those buffs, combined with the new exotic gauntlets that let you summon an empowered Arc Soul, that could be some serious damage output from just having these random floaty orbs above you. But it is time to move on to the non-Arc related subclass changes. Firstly, with the Voidwalker Nova Warp Super. So it says, notes, we clearly swung a bit too hard when we hit this previously. This should serve as a nice middle ground to settle into. So firstly, reduced initial charge detonation energy cost by 20%, reduced energy cost of holding the charge detonation by 7%, reduced time required to fully charge the charge detonation from 0.9 seconds to 0.7 seconds, reduced dark blink cost by 20%, and increased the base super duration from 18 to 22 seconds. So like they said, there was a massive nerf of this and now no one uses it. This should hopefully bring it up to a point where it's used, but not as ridiculous as it was before the nerf was enacted. Moving on from there, Dawnblade Everlasting Fire perk. So it says, notes, similar to the Striker, we wanted to make sure this perk didn't allow for infinite supers in certain activities. We've increased the amount you get back up front, but diminishing returns on it so you can't go forever. This will still be a super you can extend much longer with skill. So firstly, tuned the amount of super gained from Everlasting Fire. Initial return increased from 10% to 13% super energy, but return then decays linearly over the course of 30 kills from 13% to 0.75% returned per kill. So basically, you can still extend your super, but you can't have those absolutely ridiculous scenarios where it lasts like almost instantly. It lasts minutes and minutes more than it's definitely supposed to last. Now they do say, lastly, you may be asking, what about Spectral Blades? That is the boogeyman in PvP right now, for sure. And they say, we know it's out of bounds and are working right now on a few tweaks to bring it back in line. We'll let you know the details once we've finished playtesting and tuning to lock onto what the changes will be. So, those are some pretty big changes. Those are some pretty big changes. We're talking doubling in some cases, like tripling damage output with Arc subclasses. That is a big thing, and we could actually see some of these subclasses go from not really used whatsoever to suddenly being in the limelight again, and that's very exciting. However, we're not quite done. We're not quite done, because another honestly really sweet thing arriving April 9th, so again, it's that update 2.2.1. Now something else that's coming is brand new exotic catalysts. So 4 new exotic weapon catalysts will be added to drop in Nightfalls, Strikes, and the Crucible. Firstly, the Prospector can get its catalyst from Nightfall and Strikes. For the Rat King, Nightfall and Strikes, Hard Light, Nightfall and Strikes, and Suros Regime, the Crucible. And that's really interesting. Like, Catalyst can provide pretty substantial bonuses to stats, adding entirely new perks for exotic weapons, and the addition of a catalyst can make an exotic weapon go from okay to actually pretty in the meta. Now for me, I'm very excited to see, the Rat King can actually output some substantial damage, and the Prospector, with the buffs to grenade launchers recently, Prospector is actually really, really good to use in a lot of scenarios. That thing could become actually pretty meta. Like, just keep your eye on it. And guys, another actually big change coming is for Xur. Xur's inventory will now offer random rolled perks for armor. So that is actually so cool. So instead of just selling a random exotic armor piece like, the Doomfang Pauldrons, exotic shoulders for the Titan that come with just trash perks, now even if you already have the Doomfang Pauldrons, and previously you'd check Xur, yeah, he's selling that, I don't care, I already have them. Now, he might be selling them with like special ammo finder, heavy ammo finder, shotgun scavenger, actually really good perks, and so Xur's gonna become a lot more interesting now, because previously, again, you check him, if you had that stuff, you wouldn't bother. Now, you're gonna still be looking because you want those God Roll armor drops, and that's just one line of text, that's gonna change things quite a bit, actually. Next up, with this update, Bungie is actually going to increase the weapon drop rates in Reckoning and in Gambit Prime, so if you're going for those new Season of the Drifter weapons, this is very good news for you. Also, the last thing we're going to touch on today is with Arc Week, 3 new emotes are being added into the game that lets you display which Arc subclass you like the most. So, the Hunter right here, then after that we have the Titan, and then lastly, we have the Warlock. Guys, that's it for the video. I really hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCactus. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.